Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Anchal Tatia, co-founder at Sparklehood, startup school for working professionals. Anchal is a graduate of IIM Ahmedabad and has been a part of Y Combinator startup school grant. Hi Anchal, welcome to ELI.
Thank you so much, Priya, for having me on ELI. It's a pleasure to be able to share my experience and journey, and I hope it is helpful to people and inspirational to maybe few.
Anchal, I'd request you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Yeah, sure. Long and short of it, I've almost 9 years of work experience by now. Electrical engineering from NITK Surathkal, worked in different roles. I've done startup 4 times. As Priya introduced me, I graduated from IIM Ahmedabad, regular 2-year MBA program in 2019, and right now I'm doing Sparklehood, which is a working startup school for working professionals, where people who are kind of, let's say, like slightly risk averse and want to take a more informed decision before committing full time to entrepreneurship. We kind of help them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Uh, Tell us more about the venture Sparklehood. What is the kind of reach we have? What is the kind of results we have produced and all?
Cool. Sparklehood is actually fairly new in that sense. I'll also cover a bit about like my journey, how it led to Sparklehood, right? So Sparklehood, actually, we got the idea on 10th July. And I mean, this might also be useful for people about like how you should actually go about launching your idea initially. And this is something we did with Circles also before last year. So we got the idea about Sparklehood on 10th July, and the core insight was that I was really fortunate and lucky to have gone to a good educational institute, and we're surrounded by very smart people, right? I am Ahmedabad, extremely brilliant people. And me being the startup guy who has done it again and again multiple times, I would keep bumping into these people, and I would always ask the question, oh, like, have you found something new? Is there a new idea? And people would more often than not have like noticed something around in the ecosystem. And then you would meet them again few months down the lane, and you would like ask like, oh, what happened to that idea you were thinking about? And more often than not, in 99.9% of the cases, the answer would be like, no, nothing happened, right? So this was the idea that like, oh, I personally don't think of myself as a really smart guy. I think I'm of average intelligence. I was like, okay, why all of these really smart people are not able to like work on their ideas, even though they have like very strong credentials, working with great companies, earning a lot of money also. So that was the key insight, and we're trying to solve that with Sparklehood, that people who are working professionals and due to whatever XYZ reason, and I mean, we did our initial research and figured out what those problems were, why they're not able to jump into entrepreneurship. And that is kind of like the answer we're trying to find with Sparklehood. So 10th July, as I said, we got the idea and we didn't start building anything. The first thing you should always do is talk to your customers, right? So we made a very basic post on LinkedIn about like, hey, we are thinking of this problem, that like why working professionals are not able to work on their idea. If you have had an idea or worked on it at some point of time in your life, reach out to us. So around 300 people reached out on LinkedIn through that basic post. Next 10 days we had around 70-80 1 hour long conversations just to understand the problem, what kind of support people might need. Then after we understood what the rough basic structure should be, then we did a little bit of competitive analysis of what other people are trying to do. And me, again, being the startup guy, kind of like personally having gone through the journey around 4 or 5 times in the past, I realized that a lot of incubators in the ecosystem, first of all, they do not support anyone who's not working full time with a startup. And second is, I mean, there is absolutely no one who actually supports like working professionals along with their job. And third is that a lot of these people, there's a lot of focus on one to many sessions, like like generic gyan workshops, webinars. And we as entrepreneurs know that it's not about like giving gyan one time. There's a lot of constant support which is required to build business, and that is honestly what we are building at Sparklehood. So we not only we work on a very one-on-one level. Like if you have gone through our website, some of the mentors are really amazing. Like the mentors we have, on an average they have had an exit of 200 to 50 million dollars. So they are very successful entrepreneurs and not consultants or professors, right? So they know how to build businesses. So you work one on one with them. So there are mentors, we say they have had wild exits. Then there are coaches who have strong early stage startup experience, and we say that coaches are people who have had mild exits. For example, one of my past companies, I sold it for 18 cr. It was not an innovative startup. It was a factory where we would manufacture 250 metric tons of atta. I started this brand called Golden Berry in a very small town called Mirzapur, which for some reason now Mirzapur has become famous because of the Amazon show. Um, but anyways, I started this factory in Mirzapur, and from scratch started this brand called Golden Berry. The idea is very simple, like similar to Ashirwad Atta. We started this brand called Golden Berry, and we would sell our own atta. It's as simple as that. But we set up a factory. It was a big project, took 1 year. In next 1 year, we did roughly 60 CR of revenue and managed to sell the factory for 18 CR, made 4x returns on our initial investment, right? So, so the point being that coaches are people who have had like mild exits, so to say. And all of us work at a very close one-on-one basis. One is to set like goals and understand the business problem, refining business models, and then also making all necessary connections at each step of the way to figure out what might be needed to do. And so we have started with the first cohort on 22nd November with 18 startups. And all these startups are very varied. We have 5G, we have few startups in fintech, we have few startups in edtech. Some of them are post MVP with few lakhs of revenue. Some of them are at idea stage. Some of them are very close to MVP. So very varied. We're sector agnostic, but and for each of them, we understand that the journey is very, very different, and that is why we try to address that at a very, very personal level. Now, I think this answers most of your question about Sparklehood, right? And I keep saying that I have done like the startup journey myself multiple times, is because when I graduated from NITK Surathkal in 2010 as an electrical engineer, even in college, I did something which was very basic. We just broke even. It was some kind of like career assessment, mentoring thing we did only in Mangalore. Then I was working with Teach for India. We did something very similar to Practo. It was online appointment for doctors, but I was very immature, indisciplined at that point of time. I really didn't even understand what work we needed to do. All I thought was that, oh, if I build a website, the business will run, which of course wasn't true, and we failed miserably. But we did build like the complete solution, but it was a good learning experience. Um, After that, honestly, the next thing was the factory. And then after the factory, after selling it off, I did something called Urban Thela, which was again not a very innovative startup idea. It was more of a cash flow business thing because I was coming from the food background. The idea was that we would buy healthy food products from multiple different vendors, white label it and sell it to the dietitians, and they would sell it to their clients, right? So I did that for sold the factory, I think in 2016 May. And then there was this gap. I was wondering what to do next in life. So I also registered for CAT. I gave the exam and parallelly started working on Herbal Thera also. Got the call from IIM Ahmedabad. I was like, okay, I mean, if I'm going to be a businessman for the rest of my life, I might as well do it. And Urban Thela did well. Like by the time I moved to IIM Ahmedabad, we had roughly around like 10 lakhs of revenue. I handed it over to my brother. He's still running it. It's doing well. At IIM Ahmedabad, I was involved with CIIE, worked on a lot of different ideas. And towards the end of IIM Ahmedabad, like before graduation in last 2-3 months, we were doing another sort of like pilot or MVP called Density, which was like a hyper local ecosystem around very like dense community of people with tie up in 3 or 4 kilometer uh, with different kind of things you need on a regular basis, like groceries, gym, pharmacy and like some kind of loyalty driven program for them. We were doing well again. Like within a month, we had like 10 lakhs of kind of like revenue in MVP. At the point I'm trying to highlight, in all of these things, we actually didn't build any like scaled up product. All of these things we started with like basic emails, Excel sheets, Google Forms, very placeholder kind of website. And then towards like density, while doing it, we noticed that even on campus and some of the users, because we were focusing on discounts and loyalty and reward points, on WhatsApp group, people would keep asking each other that, hey, I'm buying something on Amazon and make my trip, do you have this credit card? Right. So we were like, okay, like this is interesting that people are sharing credit cards with each other, although it was in a trusted network, right? Like, you know, some that person in some kind of way. So, and we happened to meet Raghunandan, Taxi for Sure co-founder, at the same time, who was taking a course for us on campus called Elephants and Cheetah. So he was like, entrepreneurship is like all about like flexibility and agility. When you see a new insight, you kind of jump on it. So the whole credit card sharing thing, we were like, okay, interesting. Let's see. I mean, even though like density is doing well in terms of like almost 10 lakhs of like GMV or revenue in 1 month. It was more of GMV, it wasn't like revenue, but it was okay to prove traction. But there was a lot of like competition and questions around like nearby and other magic pin and other reward loyalty plans, point things, right? And we were not really sure how we can differentiate ourselves. So we were like, okay, let's see if we can do something around this. So we again launched an MVP around credit card sharing, and we named it Circles. It started on IMA campus. I think again within a month we had around 10 to 15 lakhs of GMV through that, and we were like, okay, it makes sense. Maybe we jump into it, because we looked around. There was no solution which was offering end-to-end credit card sharing. One like the outgoing entrepreneurship award from IMA, which is given to one student in the batch. We got IM Mavericks Fellowship at CIIE. We continue to work on it. We launched the app in August. We had again like roughly 100% growth month on month in terms of revenues, GMV. Early adopters really loved it. Based on that, we got called for the Y Combinator interview. We won the Y Combinator Startup School grant, which was given to 41 startups from around like 25,000 startups globally. It was all going well, but the problem that we were facing was that it worked well, really well for early adopters, and there was clear cut demand and business model around it. But we had to figure out something which could scale to 1 million or 10 million users. And our transaction time was like 20 minutes. We had to bring it down to under 30 seconds and very few clicks. And that could happen. I mean, we looked at a lot of technological hacks also, but payments is a very secure kind of place. You can't have too many technological hacks. You have to do it in a very, very safe mode. Otherwise, like the whole flow kind of like breaks. So to scale up, the only way that seemed logically possible for us was to become a payment method on the payment gateway, where you see like a Google Pay or other different payment options. And that wasn't possible for us due to some regulatory hurdle called PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Security Standards, which doesn't allow for any kind of credit card detail exchange, even at the back end. And everyone in the fintech world kind of has to follow it, all the banks, payment gateways. So we were like, okay, if this cannot scale, then there is no point to continue to work on it again and again. So that's why we decided to shut Circles in April this year. And then again, I was thinking of new ideas. And that's, I mean, I've already told you about Sparklehood, but it was a lot of brainstorming to and fro, thinking about different ideas. And I'm working on Sparklehood with Julia Piona. She's my co-founder, and the Sparklehood idea was, she's generally very skeptical. She was like, okay, this is something which seems like it can work. So we were like, okay, let's try it. So now here we are.
Wow, I think you are like a guidebook into the startup world. Um, since you have been a serial entrepreneur and you have been working with multiple companies at the same time, let me ask you this question, Anchal. Is there a particular way or a common path that all the startups follow to become a successful venture?
Honestly, I mean, like some of my own experience and some of the experience having known so many people in the startup world, and some of it like from reading, there is honestly no standard path. many different companies follow a lot of different path and trajectories. But I think one thing that is really important is, I guess, you need to be very driven. And I mean, again, like the approach is very different, but broadly, if I were to say based on my understanding, what really works is you should have a very open kind of mind. And I think we had some interview with Professor Amit Karna also. He's also on our mentor board from IIM Ahmedabad. He was ex-chairman of CIIE. He said this thing about uh, don't don't build a hammer to find a nail. There is a mistake sometimes which people make where they think, oh, blockchain is in trend right now, or AI is in trend right now, so let me see what I can do in that. The problem with that is then you are like not thinking of the end customer problem or the market problem. You're just trying to build something and trying to go to the market and like trying to force fit it. That generally always fails. In terms of achieving success, I think there are a lot of different ways in term you can achieve success, but that definitely is something which never works out. That I can tell you with like a lot of confidence. Other thing is, like, even at Sparkleout, now that we're working with so many different startups, I won't like go into the specifics, but one thing that again helps is that if you're really passionate about like a problem statement, again, one mistake people make is don't start building stuff like immediately right off the bat. You should only build stuff if you're kind of like an expert and you know like that, like something about this cutting edge technology which is at the forefront. And that is something which happens to people who have been working in a domain for a very long time, and they have a very detailed understanding of that. And based on like working on it for 5, 10 years or 15 years, they sometimes have a very strong sense that where the industry will move, and this is something new which they will need. In that case, it makes sense that like you build this new thing and then you go to the customers. But otherwise, if you're not from that space, if you're trying to do something for the first time, what would be best for you is talk to a lot of customers. Only the only thing it takes is time, not money, right? And a lot of people, and we interviewed a lot of people, like for the first cohort we interviewed, like we had almost 400 applications. This is a mistake we see again and again and again. People thinking about like these big ideas and building and valuation and doing this in 4 years time. Like, don't think of all of that. Like, talk to people, understand what you need to do, what will you need to build first. You will only be 2, 3 people initially. It's not like a lot of things you can do. There'll be very minimal things you can do. So you need to very like narrow it down to very specific 1 or 2 things which you can focus on in first 6 months or 1 year. These would be my advice. And talk to people, like talk to as many stakeholders as possible. It only requires time, and you it gives you a very strong understanding of the problem that you're trying to solve.
Okay. Anchal, since you are working with a lot of working professionals who are trying to become entrepreneurs, um, tell us why in the first place so many working professionals are trying to become entrepreneurs. So let me rephrase this question. Uh, if you look at the top institutes like IIM Ahmedabad, ISPs, or similar institutes, people graduate and they join big companies. But if you look closely, they are the most intelligent, most brilliant people of the country. They should be the job creators, not job seekers, right? So I think there is an imbalance in our society where people are more tuned towards a 9 to 5 job rather than entrepreneurship. Why is that? What is your thought on this aspect?
I mean, that is a very big question. Again, I don't think I have a straightforward answer to it, but based on what I've observed, my guess would be a lot of it is also has to do with like how we are as a society, how we are structured, what is the expectation from our friends and our family. And some of it is also like how our educational institutions is designed, right? For example, like nowadays, I mean, okay, like startup is kind of like slowly coming in vogue. You're starting to see like shows on Netflix, on YouTube, where it's again being like glamorized and romanticized, and society has sort of like started accepting it a bit more. And parents are kind of like proud to say that, okay, my son is doing this startup. And these are changes which are already happening. I'm sure all of us are observing it around, like in our own environment. um, this was I don't think this was true 10 or 15 years back. These are changes which are happening, which I think is overall good in terms of risk tolerance from the society point of view. But even in my own personal journey, right, like even after I have achieved some mild success, I would say, I wouldn't say that I'm very successful, some mild success. When I shut down circles and I was starting to do Sparklehood again, there was again like this big debate in my family that you could get like a very good job with a very stable salary as a senior role in any decent company. Why not take that? Why do you want to go ahead again with the risk and like running it for years before you get to know what will eventually happen? um so I think, I don't know, maybe it's just like ingrained in our society and our parents. They just want something safe for you. And now coming back to the other part of your question, even in these educational institutions, why people are taking up jobs, uh, I don't know, maybe it's a wrong thing to say, but as a society, like when we look at these things, people who are going into these colleges, they're not going with the mindset or the expectation which is there, right? It's not that, oh, like I'm going to go into IIM Ahmedabad or even IITs or any other big institutions, any of the IIMs or IITs. It's not that I'm going to go in and come out and become this entrepreneur. It's more like, oh, look at the average placement package. That's how people are deciding, and that's the most of the bulk of the people who are going in. So if you're going in with that mindset that I'm going in to come out with this stability, I mean, that sort of like the feedback loop which keeps feeding on itself. And even the colleges, if you see the message they are giving out is that, like, oh, look at like our kind of like placement record. This is the average placement package from IIT D, IIT Bombay, IIM Ahmedabad, Bangalore. So it's a constant loop which is designed in that we are also taking a decision based on that. Colleges are also being ranked on that. It's not just the colleges, even the ranking is also based on those things. So there is this whole supporting structure around it which kind of like feeds into the loop, right? Like all the magazines which do the ranking, for them, like that is a big parameter. When colleges do their own performance or try to measure themselves, they have to take care of it, otherwise they will slip on the rankings. It's a much broader change. I don't think any one particular person is to be blamed, but I think some of the things are moving in the positive direction.
Okay, that is interesting. Since you work with so many working professionals and uh, uh, having worked in this field for some time, I think you are in a good position to spot who can be a good entrepreneur and who cannot. Uh, Having said that, how do you define a person who is suitable for entrepreneurship?
Again, even in entrepreneurship, you have like both kinds of entrepreneurs. Some of them are extroverts, some of them are introverts, and both the types can go on to become extremely successful. There is no specific personality type, but one thing I think that matters is like, because you're going to build your own whole business around what kind of problem you're solving, right? So the problem identification becomes really really important. That, and it helps. uh, I mean, there is again, I think this romanticized version that like anyone can go and anyone can do anything. May be true, it's possible that you can do it, but some of the problems are really tough problems to solve. Like for example, if you were to go into AI or blockchain, well, if you do not understand the fundamentals of this technology and haven't been operating in that space to understand where the gaps are or what the problem is, if you just enter into it, you will not be able to build a good product, because it takes a lot of years of learning to build some good product, solve a strong problem, right? So one is, it helps. Again, I mean, I could be wrong, but it generally helps if you're trying to solve a problem in a space which you understand well. or if you have a capability or a skill set, right? If I'm a business guy, and there are counter examples to that, I'm a business guy and I decide to build like a hardcore scientific solution, I will have a very tough time. The learning curve for me will be very high. I will just have to spend a couple of years to learn the basics to try to build something. And people do not have that much, let's say, like resource in terms of your family patience, your friends patience, or you even being able to pay your bills for such a long time. So if you put time into the equation and the expectation that you need to show progress, it helps that you try to do something in a space where you understand the space well, and you have some kind of network or basic skill sets which can help you give an advantage over other people who might be trying to solve that problem, right? And in terms of your basic question, that who will, and these are some of the things which we are also trying to look for when we are interviewing people. And the other thing which is really important is, I think, other than this, is persistence. That, like, okay, once you've decided that this is the problem or this is the business I'm going to build or solve, you need to be really, really persistent, and you need to be mentally very strong, because I mean, you will face a lot of problems, a lot of difficulties, from family, from co-founders, from business point, from sales point, traction. If you're lucky enough to get money, then even from investors. It's a lot of juggling a lot of different things at the same time. Also, like, just to bust the myth, even if you become really, really successful, life doesn't get easy. You just like have a different kind of problem, but you will still be really, really busy. If someone is doing it that, oh, like, I will do the startup and I will become a millionaire and then I'll be chilling out on a beach somewhere, that is not true. That will most likely not happen. Because even if you, like, the eventual thing is that 5 years, 10 years down the lane, maybe you will sell out to someone, or you get to IPO. In a lot of cases, even then, like, the founders, they end up with a very small amount of equity when the company actually goes to exit, right? So there are a lot of things which can still go wrong, and you get to that point of like chilling out only if you have managed to do all of these things very, very well, and still you manage to kind of like be completely out of the loop. For example, even if you sell out your company, you might be selling it to someone where there might be some agreement that you still need to work with them for a couple of years. There are a lot of like intricacies to this. So the eventual chilling out thing, honestly, it only happens when like some eventual exit buyout or something happens, when you're like completely cut off from the company. And that happens, and the number for that like just keeps going down and down and down.
Okay. I think we are almost up with the time. I just have a few more questions. I'd like to understand what are the challenges you have faced while building and growing the ventures you have started as an entrepreneur.
I mean, honestly, like, sales is like, one is, if you're doing it, there are two kinds of businesses. One is you're trying to solve a very hard technical problem. That is where a lot of like really innovative stuff happens, at least from a technological advancement point of view. I haven't done a business which revolved a lot around technical challenges. It's always been like a change or a tweak around the business model, or how different things are organized right now, and how in a different way I can organize to provide a different kind of value. In the other scenario, like the kind of challenge, I mean, honestly, like, sales is always the most difficult thing. If sometimes people assume that, oh, if you build this, or if you come out with the product and you make this big announcement to the world, people will be running and jumping around to sign up for your product. Speak to any entrepreneur who has done anything in this life, and every single person will tell you that, like, most of them thought that, but the world is really not waiting for you. It's very, very difficult to sell your product. It's very, very difficult for us. For example, at Sparkleload, the one of the biggest challenges is, how do we attract very high quality startup? How do we attract very high quality founders to us, right? So that is always a tough challenge. That for us, it's high quality founders. For when I was doing the factory, it was like, okay, like, now we have set up the factory, I need to sell few crores worth of product. How do I do that very quickly? Selling is tough. It's not that easy. So for startups, my advice would be that if you're trying to build something, it would help that whatever problem or thing that you're trying to solve, when you're doing like at a very early stage only, when you start to understand your problem a lot more and start trying to talk to people, from that point of view, from that point itself, start trying to build relationship with the people in the ecosystem, and maintain your own list of people who might act as your supporters or people who might do some kind of word of mouth thing. Don't wait for sales to happen when you have like eventually build everything. It's kind of also like an ongoing thing. You need to build supporters and some ecosystem and followers for yourself from a very very early stage. So it should always be like an ongoing thing from like the beginning when you get the idea itself. That would be, I think, my advice, and that is, I think, frankly very tough.
Okay. I just have one question left. Before that, I will play a small rapid fire round. You have to choose between two words. The first combo is ethics versus growth. You have to choose one of them.
Ethics.
Micromanagement versus freedom.
Freedom.
Single founder versus multiple founders.
Multiple founders.
Vision versus execution.
Execution.
Hire and fire versus slow progress.
Mm, I don't know the right answer to that. Maybe slow progress.
Sustainability versus profitability.
Profitability.
Short-term goals versus long-term goals.
Long-term goals.
Bootstrap versus external funding.
Bootstrapped.
Quality versus quantity.
Quality.
Reliability and performance.
Performance.
Okay, I'm done with the rapid fire. My last question to you. So this is a unique question. Since you mentor so many founders and entrepreneurs, uh, perhaps you are the best person to answer this. What is the role of mentorship in an entrepreneur's life, or the entrepreneurial journey? What role does a mentor play?
I mean, the role of the mentor is frankly like the core idea being that you don't make the mistakes that I have made, right? Like that is honestly what the mentor is trying to do. His best and genuine effort is that you do not make the mistakes that I made. You get to learn from the experiences I have had. You don't take the wrong paths that I did. And if I connect it back with the startup kind of like journey and world, right? Startups are very fragile. It's just like couple of people, the runway is very short, time is very limited, resources are very limited. More often than not, if you make mistakes early on in your journey, maybe you choose like the wrong business model or you narrow down on the wrong customer segment, it means some of these like big decisions which are kind of really really important, and if you make them wrong, it means that you might work on it for 3 to 6 months or even longer, and then you realize, okay, it's not working and you need to do course correction. This in startup world more often than not might mean that you will shut down the startup, because the problem is you're working with other people and you do not have enough resources and you're not paying them enough, and even for your personal sake, your supporters, your family, everyone is waiting to see some progress. And if not that it has to be very strong progress, but there has to be some evidence that it is working, and if you do these things wrong, there's in most cases not much turning back, because these same people lose the confidence in you, and then it becomes very very difficult to convince them again to kind of do like a restart, right? So the mentors really, I mean, not that they can help you 100% of the times, but they can really help you with a lot of these things, and uh, kind of like help you figure out what these things should be. And it's not just giving advice. At least at Sparklehood, we're not only giving advice, we are also actually going out of our way to ensure that whatever is sort of like decided to make happen or executed, we try to go out of our way within our own personal networks to identify the right people who can help you with that. Right, different startups, if it's a edtech startup, it needs help in like growing, then it's not just like, oh, I tell you that you need to go and grow. We try to find, oh, like maybe there is a company with whom some kind of B2B tie-up might be more useful, where through them you can get hundreds of schools. You try to make that happen, you get that conversation started. If it's a 5G startup, then trying to find someone big at some company and making that connection happen so the conversation can go forward. I mean, of course the actual execution the mentor can do, but these small like connections in early days, when a little bit of like traction or the needle in your favor can make the huge amount of difference to prove confidence and results to everyone, it makes a world of a difference. I think the mentors help not only with advice but their network as well.
On that note, I would close this session, and it was a pleasure, also an honor to host you at TLI, and many insightful lessons we have got. Thanks, Anchal, for your time, and our best wishes for Sparklehood.
Thank you so much, Priya. I am very lucky and fortunate to be here, and I hope whatever I said is useful to people and it helps them make avoid some of the mistakes. Thank you so much for having me.
Listeners, you can follow and connect with Anchal on LinkedIn by typing Anchal Tatya. Also, do reach out to him for advices and mentorship on your startup. That is it for today's episode. We'll be back with another exciting entrepreneur. Stay tuned to ELI.